بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Alhamdulillah, you're all students, you're all in the mode of studying, exams, and likewise as well as you prepare for exams, then as is always the case around this time of the year, everyone's speaking about preparing for the special month, the month of Ramadan, and this is the Shahrul Kareem. It's a blessed time, and it's a time which comes and goes like a guest. You know, sometimes when you're expecting a guest, you know, if it's just your mate next door, you're not going to do anything. You might not tidy up your house or your bedroom, just let him come in. But if that guest is someone that's important, you know, perhaps your local sheikh, the imam of the masjid, or for example it might be the father of the girl you want to propose to, or vice versa, you're going to make sure you look nice. You've got to make sure you're presented, you're wearing your best perfume, you've got your best clothes on, you've got your hair cut probably, your house is tidy. You're going to go out of your way to prepare yourself because of the importance of that person that's in front of you. And the month of Ramadan, it's a month, 29, 30 days out of the 12 months of the Islamic calendar. So it comes and it goes like a guest. And the person that's going to get the most of that blessed month of Ramadan is the one that makes the most preparation. It goes without saying. So, inshallah, in this talk, I'm going to look at a number, like maybe 3 different topics, and inshallah to make it short and, you know, hopefully memorable, so that you can, without having to write stuff down. I know many of you got phones, you can type or something. Make it, you know, an issue of 5s. So, first thing, 5 virtues of Ramadan, 5 dangers every Muslim should avoid, and 5 tips to help you if you're going to be doing your final, your end of year exam, which is going to be the exam which your certificate depends upon. Then 5 tips in how to, inshallah, be successful, inshallah, in your exams or in your studies. 5 tips of how you can make the most of Ramadan. So it's going to be 5 virtues, 5 dangers to avoid, and 5 tips to get the most out of you know, study during this time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen the month of Ramadan and made the month of Ramadan, made it, that month specifically, made fasting in that month a pillar from the pillars of Islam. So this is from the virtues of the month of Ramadan, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified it as the pillar or the month in which Muslims fast. As is well known, from the pillars of Islam, Bunya al-Islam ala khamsin, shahadati an la ilaha illallah, wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, wa iqam as-salah wa ita'i zakat, wa sawm Ramadan wa hajj al-bayt. So it's a pillar from the pillars of Islam, and it's important to begin with that because one of the things I'm going to discuss is excuses for not fasting the month of Ramadan, what are valid and what are also invalid. Also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made standing in prayer, standing in salat, in the month of Qiyam al-Layl or Qiyam al-Ramadan, a means for the expiation of a person's sins. من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stands in salah in the month of Ramadan with iman and seeking reward from Allah, Allah will forgive that person for their sins. So it shows you another virtue of this blessed month of Ramadan. Also, from the virtues of the month of Ramadan, the third one is that it's a month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran, the final revelation to mankind. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. So the month of Ramadan is a month in which Allah sent down the Quran as a guidance for mankind and as a clarification of that guidance. So also shows you the virtue of that month, that Allah chose that to be the month that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Quran. Also from the virtues of the month of Ramadan is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a night in the month of Ramadan better than 1,000 months. And that's Laylatul Qadr. خير من ألف شهر. Laylatul Qadr is better than 1,000 months. When it comes to this, what's meant by 1,000 months, some scholars say, believe it or not, that it's not just limited to 1,000, it's according to the individual and his closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It might be 1,000,000 for a person. It might be better than 1,000,000 months for one person, it might be better than 1,000 months for another person. So that's also from the virtues of this blessed month, the month of Ramadan. Also, the fifth one, the fifth virtue from the virtues, so we said 5 virtues. The fifth one is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the prize and the reward for the person that makes the most of this month, salvation from the hellfire. Itqun min an-nar, Ataqa, people that are saved from the hellfire, saved from punishment in the hellfire. So these are 5 of the virtues, or 5 virtues of this blessed month, the month of Ramadan. The first one, that Allah made fasting a pillar in this month. Allah could have made it in the month of Muharram, the month of Rajab. No, it's the month of Ramadan. The second, that Allah made standing in salat an expiation for the person's sins. The third one, that Allah revealed the Quran. The fourth one, that there's a night which is better than 1,000 months. And the fifth one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the prize or the reward for the worshippers, that they are saved from the hellfire. Like this month of Ramadan, Allah has prepared it for us so that we may compete. We may compete and race in doing good and staying away from that which is harmful and beneficial. Allah has made it easy for us to do that. So this month of Ramadan is a competition. And it's a competition and it's an exam and it's a test as well. As students, especially in your final year, or if you've got siblings that are doing their GCSEs, I've got a son who's doing his GCSEs this year, you can see that there's a lot of preparation which is needed. The end of either 3 years of study, if in your final year, or 2 years if GCSEs or A-levels, it comes down to this month, the month of May and June perhaps. That's when the exams are, right? May and June. So all of that that you've done, or the work, what are you doing? How are you spending the next 2 weeks or the next 3 weeks? You're going to see everybody in their books. It reminds me of the Jamia. When we had exams in the Jamia Islamiyya, when it was time for exams, everybody was in the masjid from what time? 24 hours. 24 hours, they slept, they woke up, studied, slept, wake up, studied, sleep, wake up, study, nothing else. Studying at night, studying at day, reading, comparing, looking at this work, summarizing, getting ready, memorizing the text, memorizing the ahadith, memorizing, and that's what you're going to be doing when you're doing your exams. So everyone, if you look around, everyone's competing to do what? To pass their exams. The month of Ramadan is a month of competition. Like how a student prepares for exams, and it's got requirements for you to even enter the competition in the first place. When we're speaking about getting prepared for Ramadan, Ramadan is a month of taqwa. Ramadan is a month of taqwa. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Are you who believe, fasting has been made an obligation upon you, likewise made an obligation upon those that came before you, so that you may attain taqwa. So Ramadan is a month of the muttaqud. It's a month of the people of taqwa. Taqwa is not a person engaging in major sins, but it's a person who's repentant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeks forgiveness all the time. Taqwa is a person that's constantly repentant and constantly turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So like for example, if you've got an exam you have to do, or a requirement before you sit your exam is you have to have a certain amount of attendance, or before you do a degree you have to have done your A-levels, or there's certain requirements before you can even enter university or enter the exam, or likewise if it's in a race or competition, likewise as well a person is going to want to exceed in the month of Ramadan, there's requirements for him even entering that test, because it's a test of a person's iman. And from the requirements is that a person purifies himself of ma'asi, of sin, and of ithm before the month of Ramadan, making tawbah, making istighfar, There's a statement that's mentioned on Al-Hasan al-Basri, rahmatullahi alayh, that a person came to him and he said to him, my nafs, it finds it difficult to do obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I find it difficult to stop it from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My nafs. And Hasan al-Basri, he said to him that this is the result of the chains of, or the shackles of ma'asi and sin. That if a person is immersed in sin, he's going to find it difficult, his nafs is going to find it hard to do that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands him, to stay away from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibits. So he said to make istighfar and make tawbah constantly. Istighfar and tawbah, istighfar and tawbah. And there's another narration of Hasan al-Basri which regards to a person seeking success, a person seeking wealth, and a person seeking offspring and family. That the key to all of that is istighfar. So making tawbah before the month of Ramadan, don't some people think, okay, Ramadan is a month of forgiveness. What? But the forgiveness or seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes before that. And I can't overemphasize the importance of al-istighfar, for asking Allah and repenting to Allah and turning back to Allah for success in everything that you're doing in your daily life. So it's not just a way of preparing for the month of Ramadan, but making istighfar and turning back to Allah is a way of a person preparing for his exams or the coursework or essays that he's working hard doing. A person that's like you're all students, nobody's going to wait until the night before the exam to start revising. If your mate, your best friend said, you say, come let's go and make, or inshallah he won't be your best friend. If you say to him, come let's make muraja, and he says, no, I'm going to wait until the night before, and he's your best friend, then you've got not very good best friends, basically. He's like, no, wait until the night before, if it's going to be fine. I've got it blocked, don't worry about it. Say masalama, you're on your own. If a person is going to want to be successful in his exams, he prepares way before. A month before, 3 months before. The more he prepares, the longer he gives himself to preparing, the better the results are going to be, and the less stress is going to be, obviously. So he prepares early. If a person starts preparing late, you look at that person and you think, you're like saying, Janazah salat masalam, you're finished. It's over for you. You're not even thinking that they're going to do well. So a person stays awake revising, they start revising early. But all this effort that a person puts in so that he can pass the exam, it's a small test from the larger test of life. It's a small test in comparison to the larger test of life, because you're going to go through a lot more tests and a lot more examinations in life. And those examinations that a person goes through, they're going to be what shapes them, i.e. how they respond and how they are with regards to preparing for those tests. And the one that none of us can prepare for is death. Because death doesn't have an appointed time. You know your time of your exam, you know the time of Ramadan, inshallah Allah makes us reach it. You know that these things have an appointed time so you can prepare for it. But death, no one knows the time when it's going to happen, so you have to always be prepared for it. Because it can happen at any time to anybody. Before your exam, after your exam, the day you get your shahada, the day it could happen in the future. So the test of life is that a person is constantly purifying his nafs, seeking forgiveness from Allah, so he's prepared for when death may come to that person. So that's another way to prepare. That a person has to always be ready, like he's going to be ready inshallah for his exam. Meaning that the effort that you're going to exert for your exam, or the effort that you're going to exert in the month of Ramadan, a person has to be prepared before that, not just at the time. And with regards to the level of a person's intelligence, it's down to, first and foremost, and this is something that everybody has to realize and everybody has to understand. This point especially, that it is tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether you are successful or not. It doesn't come down to purely your ability to revise and to study. This is part of it, but the reality is the greater part is that it's tawfiq from Allah. You may revise everything that you think is going to come up in the exam, and the only thing that comes up is the thing that you did not revise. What are you going to do? Apart from cry, make dua, supplicate Allah to give you the answer. What are you going to do? Your success is your knowing that success comes from Allah and not from yourself. This is where your success lies, ultimately, in all of your life. So having that as the premise and as a basis of everything that you do, inshallah you can't go wrong. Even if you, and I'm not saying that any of you are aiming for this or destined for this, even if you don't do wonderfully great in your exams. Hopefully that relieves some of the pressure, the exam pressure or stress. With regards to this competition or this race or this preparation, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what we should be competing in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions سابقوا إلى مغفرة من ربكم وجنة عرضها كعرض السماء والأرض أعدت للذين آمنوا بالله ورسله ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. This is the competition. This is the race. Allah says سابقوا. It's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to vie and to compete for the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and for Jannah, for a garden whose width is the width of the heavens and the earth, that's prepared for those who believe in Allah and His messengers. That is the bounty of Allah, that which Allah gives to whomsoever He wills. One of the ways in which a person prepares is by having knowledge of the award or the prize. If a person says enter a competition, the first question you're going to ask is, apart from what am I going to have to do in the competition, what am I going to gain, what am I going to win? I'm going to prepare for what? For a prize. You have to know what's at the end, what's at stake, what you can lose, what you can win. So one of the ways in which a person prepares, obviously for your exams you know what you're going to gain, and you know what's at stake, your certificate. Some people might think their future, that's not true. Your future is not at stake by passing or by your degree. But some people get a degree and in whatever one field and end up doing something completely different. End up doing another degree, realizing that that degree wasn't what they wanted to do in their life. And when they reach 24, which is when they've just finished their degree, they realize, hold on a minute, I actually want to be something else. I want to do something else. Any mature students, like, or is everyone 24 around that age or? Yeah? The reason I'm asking and saying that, is that when it comes to what you study and what you become, in most cases there's no correlation between the two. I'm not wanting to dishearten all of you, but don't make I'm saying this for one reason. I'll get to the bottom of it quickly, just to cut to the chase. Some people are going to be saying, I cannot fast in the month of Ramadan and study for my exams. I've got an exam, I can't fast. And what they've done is they've placed they've given themselves an udhr shari'i that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give. The people that are permitted to break their fast are those that are traveling. In the case of women, you're on your monthly cycle, then you have to fast as a pillar of Islam. But the point I'm getting at is that what they've done, they've placed the most important month of the year underneath something which there's no correlation between that and their success in the future. But their fasting and their obedience to Allah and their success in this life and the next life is dependent upon their fast in the month of Ramadan, not dependent upon their how well they do in the exam. So that's the reason why, you know, there's this emphasis on looking at how insignificant what you end up studying compared to what you end up doing may potentially be. I'm not saying it's going to be that case, but there's the potential that what you study has no impact on your future work, income, wealth, happiness, family situation, has no impact whatsoever. Moving on, after saying that, I want to look at 5 tips. So you are going to be doing an exam, some of you, and you do want to, inshallah, make sure you're in the best mental and physical state to do exams. What times are exams usually? 5, 4, 3, is it throughout the day? Ranges, but it's not at night time, it's not 7, 8, 9.
No.
It's not close towards iftar time, is it? It's more either from the morning or the afternoon. So you've got morning, afternoon, evening, night. Yeah, because to break up the day into chunks, you want to manage your time according to chunks. There's 5 tips. These are obvious ones, but I'm just going to, you know, go through them, mention them quickly. With regards to 5 tips, for the person to get the most out of their study and their mental and physical well-being, these are essential. The first one is suhoor, obviously. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a command in a hadith, tasahharu, take your suhoor. Why? Because in your suhoor is what? Barakah. Okay, now you know the hadith that you should have your suhoor, which is before you start your fast, because it has barakah. Now you know in this hadith, and then applying it with the intention of getting the barakah for what? For your exams. To be in a physical, mental frame of mind for your exam, inshallah you're going to gain that blessing. That's the first one. The second one is obviously sleep. So we're talking about sleep. With regards to Ramadan and fasting, then you've heard of the one where they wake up, pray Fajr, sleep until Maghrib and wake up and break their fast. Is their fast valid or invalid? Who said invalid? Why? Does sleep break your fast? No. Okay, let's say you're right, I missed something, that they missed their salah. Maybe this is a big no. Let's say they woke up for salah and went back to sleep then. Is their fast valid or invalid? Valid. Their fast is valid. There's nothing wrong with sleeping in the day of Ramadan. As a matter of fact, when it comes to, in the cases of students, for example, then obviously you're going to be using the time between iftar and suhoor to revise, and then sleeping, and then waking up, because you need to be mentally alert. And to be mentally alert, one thing you can't be is tired. So no matter how much you believe that reading in the day is going to help you in your exam, it may actually do the opposite, which is hinder you, because it's not maintaining, it's not getting the information, it's producing the information which you need, and that takes a lot more than just sitting and reading a book. So the point being is that when it comes to sleep, then having a good sleep pattern during the day, for example, after the exam you come home, you go to sleep and you wake up before iftar, like that type of thing, and then you stay awake up until suhoor, for example, you have a good suhoor, a healthy one obviously. Don't eat, careful what you put in your body, ikhwan, or akhawat. Don't put stuff in your body which is going to be that, biscuits. Stay away from that type of food. That type of food is only going to make you lethargic. You have to put stuff in your body which is going to help you. And obviously you have to drink a lot of fluid, that goes without saying. So a lot of liquid and also fruit or food which is natural. Olives or stuff like that, but not biscuits and chocolates and ice cream. And so also what you eat for suhoor, the type of food you eat is also going to have an impact on your fatigue, specifically when speaking about fatigue. And I don't know how many of you drink Red Bull and think it helps you, or drink coffee and thinking that it's going to be good, but generally speaking, it's something to avoid as well. I'll be honest with you. And I love coffee. I'm saying that from perspective of a coffee addict, 100% admitted it. I'm not going to deny it. But the point being, I don't have to sit an exam. So it doesn't affect me at this moment in time. So obviously the second one is, so it's suhoor and sleep. Coffee and Red Bull, it messes about with your sleep. That's the problem with it. When you should be sleeping, you're going to be awake. You won't necessarily be functioning very well, but you're going to be awake anyway. So that's the problem with these type of drinks. The third one, tip for success in your exams, and this is probably, I've mentioned it third, but it's probably the most important, is the days that you don't have exam, make sure you go and do Qiyamul Layl in the masjid. Go do, I'm not saying that, with regards to Tarawih Salah in the masjid, and the hukm of it is that it's what? Wajib or recommended? Recommended, highly recommended. So if you missed it because you need to study and revise, then alhamdulillah, you're going, inshallah, you're not going to lose anything if your intention is correct. But if you, when you don't have to revise and you have the opportunity to go to Qiyam, make sure you go, because that's what's going to, when's your dua going to be answered? When you're in Salah, when you're in Sajda. The closest a person comes to his Lord is when he's in Sajda. And the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when you're in Sajda, أكثروا من الدعاء. Make the most dua when you're in sujood. So that time and that place is a place when you're going to be crying, oh Allah, I don't forget to do my exam, but please make me get a good grade. And you're going to be asking and asking and asking and asking. Because ultimately, and this is the reality, everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You put the effort, you take the means, Allah is the one that facilitates for your, so you have to turn back to Allah. The fourth one, with regards to tips for doing well in your exams, is tasbih or dua. And I mentioned it in the sajda, but generally outside of that as well. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith, which is one on a hadith in 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, someone came to the Messenger of Allah and said, a man came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, the Shariah of Allah have become heavy or difficult upon me. Tell me something that I can be persistent and consistent in. One thing that I can do all the time. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا يزال لسانك رطب بذكر الله. Or كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, make sure that your tongue is always moist with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And don't forget the ayah in the Quran, Allah بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Is it not in the remembrance of Allah that the hearts become tranquil? Okay, exam time is this time of what? Anxiety, pressure, and stress. And without a doubt, a state where you're under stress and you're anxious, it affects your ability to function, your mental faculties. The more stress you have, the less you're able to make tarkeez or to focus on something. So the less stress you have, the more you're able to focus. Someone says you're going to read, I don't know if you've come across instructions where, tell the school children they don't have to fast in Ramadan when they have their exams. This is what's going to be going around in secondary schools and stuff like that. Because, knowledge is important and all this other stuff. Knowledge is important, but fasting in Ramadan is the fourth pillar of Islam. So, everything has to put in perspective. And they're going to say because when you're fasting you can't focus, they have all these other things. That's not true. The reality is, the things that remove your ability to function intellectually or to your mental faculties is going to be stuff like stress, like anxiety, stress, a lot of pressure. So what you want to do is to remove stress, anxiety and pressure, and one of the things that does that is making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also as well, the fifth tip, especially for you, more than anybody else, is fasting in Sha'ban. Sounds good. Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to fast, the companions said the Messenger of Allah used to fast the most in Sha'ban than any other month, apart from Ramadan. And when the Messenger of Allah was asked why, he said it's a month which is neglected, meaning Rajab is a month which has virtue, and then Ramadan, and then Sha'ban was neglected, because it comes just before a month of fasting. So to the point that the Messenger of Allah used to make wisal between Sha'ban and Ramadan, even though that's something which is not for everyone. But the Messenger so the point being is, how else are you going to get your mind into the frame of mind of fasting while studying if you don't do it in the month of Sha'ban. So a tip, and some of you, inshallah, maybe you do anyway, some of you might not have done it before. Even if you haven't done it before, you need to do this. If this is your final year, you've got big exams, you definitely need to do it this year. You need to fast as much as possible in Sha'ban, so that you know what it's like and you've already built up your, let's say, your method for how you're going to approach. If you're going to just start in Ramadan, then you're not going to be accustomed to it. It's going to take you 10 days to get into it. Once you're in the middle, you're going to be flying. The last 10 days, you're going to be. But during that time, you're doing exams, so you need to prepare before. So those are 5 tips. 5 tips. Number 1, suhoor. Make sure it's healthy and make sure you eat well. Drinking a lot. Sleep, taking naps during the day. Number 3, qiyam on the days they don't have exams. Number 4, making a lot of dua. Number 5, fasting Sha'ban. 5 dangers. 5 dangers. Or maybe not 5, I'll cut it down to 3 because of the time. The first danger is your nafs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, and it's a warning for us, inna nafs la'amaratun bisu. Verily your nafs is inclines towards su, or towards evil. And what this means, illa ma rahma rabbah. Illa ma rahma rabbi, inna rabbi ghafurur rahim, as in Surah Yusuf. Except those whom Allah has mercy upon, verily my Lord is forgiving and merciful. When it comes to your nafs, our nafs, it wants to take more than it wants to give. When it comes to our own rights, we demand them completely. When it comes to giving people their rights, we want to always be short. And this is called tatfif, i.e. fulfilling the rights or being short in them. And this happens with every single person. When it comes to what you can get, you're going to get as much as possible. When it comes to what you have to give, you're going to give less. This tatfif, it comes in every single aspect of a person's life, whether it's his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the fast in the month of Ramadan, or whether it's in regards to his relationship with others, buying and selling, business, whatever it is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns, waylun lil mutaffifin. Woe to those who are mutaffifin. And in the description of it here is with regards to buying and selling. الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. Those that when it comes to getting weight or measure, they want all of it. When it comes to giving, they want to make it short a little bit. And this is something which is common, to the point that it's mentioned that Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Khalifa, he was on Jummah, somebody came late. So he said to him, why are you late? As you know, Jummah Salat, you should come from before even the khutbah to get the most reward. You should come early. Coming after the khutbah, you've come late. He said, why are you late? He said that when I heard the nida, and then I went and made wudu. I went and made wudu. Pay attention. Yawm al-Jumu'ah, what's recommended, or if not wajib? Ghusl. He went and made wudu. So this person, number 1, not only was he late, but also he made wudu instead of ghusl. What did Umar ibn Khattab say to him? لَقَدْ تَفَفْتَ, i.e. tatfif. What, you've taken all your haqq, you've given back less than you should have given back. You didn't come early, and instead of making a ghusl, you made wudu. I.e. when it comes to doing the action, you want to give a smaller amount. When it comes to receiving, you want to take the most that you can take. So this is something that a person has to be aware of in his nafs. He has to fight against this, because this is something that brings around a decrease in his reward and a lack of success in his actions. Because a person has to perfect what he's doing. He has to perfect his ibadah, he has to perfect his relationship with others, he has to perfect his, his knowledge. Everything he has to perfect it. So that's one way. That's one of the things that a person has to be aware of, his nafs. The second thing is company, bad company. I.e., your friends are one of 3 people. Either a friend that when you see him or her, he reminds you of Allah. Or when he speaks, he reminds you of Allah. I don't mean by that he's always mentioned ayat or hadith. No one's like that. And if no one's expected to be like that. But what I mean is that he reminds you of that which is going to benefit you in the afterlife, not that which is going to only benefit you in the dunya. Yeah? So that's the first type of friend. That's the friend which you have to keep with you all the time. All the time. Then you have the second type of friend where he benefits you in your dunya. And that friend is like medicine. You take it when you need it, but you don't take it all the time. Medicine, you don't take it all the time, take it when you need it. I'll give you an example. You might have a small headache. Do you go straight away, go and take ibuprofen, and you put up with it? You put up with it. But if your headache is a migraine, you take a ibuprofen, and then that's it, the headache goes. The third type of friend is a friend which brings about, it reminds you of evil. This type of friend, you avoid them all the time. This type of person, you avoid them all the time. They don't do anything, they don't bring any benefit in your dunya, they don't bring you any benefit in your deen. What benefit, what are they going to do for you? This type of friend, they're like a fly. A fly will go past flowers, of all types of flowers, and go and land on what? Crap. Basically. That's that type of friend. He's like a fly. He only seeks crap. He doesn't seek any benefit. That friend has to be avoided completely. The third thing, danger to a person in his deen and his dunya, and it applies to preparing for Ramadan or preparing for your exams. The third thing a person has to be aware of is shaitan. Alhamdulillah, shaitan is locked up in the month of Ramadan. The shayateen are locked up in the month of Ramadan, as is mentioned in the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إذا جاء رمضان فتحت أبواب الجنة وغلقت أبواب النار. The hadith that mentioned that the shayateen are locked up. Mentioned when Ramadan comes, the doors of paradise are opened, the gates of hellfire are closed, and the shayateen are locked up. So that heaviness that a person feels outside the month of Ramadan, that burden, that heaviness that a person may feel, inside the Ramadan it's gone. People are engaged in either conversation, reciting Quran, making dua, salat, sawm, all of it's ibadah. That's the Ramadan. What about leading up to Ramadan? So a person has to be aware of shayateen. These are from the dangers that a person has to watch out for. Finally, just two excuses, invalid excuses that a person may say, one of your friends might say, to kind of justify or excuse why he's not going to be fasting in the month of Ramadan. Number one, and this one is, for one of the better word, is a very bad excuse. And there's bad excuses and there's very bad ones. My parents said I can't fast. How old are you? What do you mean your mum said you can't fast, your dad said you can't fast? I have to respect my parents. Respecting my parents is part of the deen. The reply to that is obvious. First and foremost, I'm sure there's a lot of other things your parents tell you not to do that you still do, first of all. So that's the first thing. Let's be honest with each other here. You're not completely following what your parents tell you to do, otherwise I'm sure half the things that you do, you wouldn't be doing. The second one, and obviously the answer, the Islamic response, the correct answer, there's la ta'a lil-makhluq fi ma'siyat al-khaliq. There's no obedience to the creation in disobedience to the Creator, whoever they may be, parents or not. The second excuse that's going to come up is it's too difficult to fast because I've got exams and I need to revise and it's hard. The reply to that is that the only valid excuse that permits a person to break their fast during the day of Ramadan is if they're traveling or if they're ill. If they're not traveling or not illness or they're not ill, then being difficult is not an excuse for a person to break their fast. Okay, what's the solution? What does a person do? Okay, you have to start your day fasting. There's no alternative to that. Even if really by the time it comes, as you go through the day, you become ill, you become physically weak for some reason. I don't know why that would happen, but let's say it actually does happen because you're starting to get an illness of some sort. Then in that case, you break your fast for what you need to take you out of your illness, if that's the case. And then you continue fasting and you make up the day. But you can't start your day not fasting on the basis that you have an exam on the day. It's not permissible to do that. By doing that, a person's sinning. You know, and I don't know any scholar, maybe you can benefit me, but I don't know any scholar that says it's permissible because of exams for a person not to fast. You know, so that's the general fatwa on that issue. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.